So a few of you came up to me on the break and pointed out a couple of things and asked me to address them. My friend Michael came up and said, hey, you know what? We're struggling with the fact that we're chasing the same money in a lot of these cases. How do we deal with that? Can you address that? Somebody else, Margaret, came up and she asked me, how do we get out of the idea that we rush to blame or we rush to pick a single new idea? Somebody else came up and asked me, what do we do about the people who aren't at the table? And somebody asked me about how do we deal with the fact that we come to these problems with uneven power? And then Mary also just asked about how do we turn this all into stories? And I promised everybody that I would deal with those issues, but I lied. I'm not going to deal with any of those issues. You're going to deal with those issues. You're going to deal with those issues. In fact, what I want to do in this next session is to put into practice the very things that we learned from Carol and build off the things that we learned from Melissa and continue to give you the tools and the techniques so that you can go back to your organizations and build off of them. So we heard some great ideas before lunch. And a lot of you rushed into and found some great new solutions to your problems. But here's the thing. I now want you to reflect for a minute. I want you to step back. In fact, you may have had some churn in your table. There may be some people who left. Maybe some new people showed up. That's fine. That's what happens. That's what happens when we deal with these problems. Some people leave. Some new people show up. But I want you to reflect for a minute and think about what your character has in common with the other people at the table, based on your last conversation. And I want you to think about, from your character's perspective, what you can do to really put some more meat on the bones of these partner model canvases. But more than that, and this is not on the slides, so you've got to pay attention here, what I want you to think about are what are the experiments that you can run. So what are the distinct, testable outcomes that you could run to test your ideas? And then I want you to think about what's your elevator pitch? What's that story you're going to tell about the ideas that you come up with and the experiments that you're going to run that you're going to share with all of us? And that's what we're going to do for the next few minutes. We're going to work on those ideas. So I want you to just kind of quietly think to yourselves for a few minutes, and then I want you to reflect and bring up to speed anybody who's new at the table. And then I want you to think about what are you going to do to test the ideas you've come up with. And maybe you only came up with one, and that's fine. But are there other ideas? Because remember what I said before lunch, we need diversity of ideas, not just one idea. We need a diversity of ideas. I shared with somebody over lunch that I teach a class on public-private partnerships at George Washington University, and the way that I run that class is similar to the way they run this session. It's all about cases and experiments. And what I do with the class is I find a great speaker, a great model of somebody who's done and tackled one of these tough issues, and I have them write a case. And then I change all the names and all of the organizations, and I give that case to the class as teams, and they have to work on it. And then they've got to come in, and they've got to pitch the guest lecturer. So the guest lecturer doesn't actually do anything. He just reacts or she reacts to what they've heard. And 9 times out of 10, what happens is the team will have come up with one idea. And the first thing out of the guest lecturer's mouth is why that idea won't work. So they sweep the leg. And then the person is stuck there, the team is stuck there, and they can't think of any other ideas because they've totally narrowed their focus to one thing. And that's what I want to break us out of, is thinking about just narrowing it down to one idea. Think about what are the experiments that you can run. And that's what we're going to do for the next 15 minutes. I want you to think about what are the experiments that you can run, the diversity of ideas that you can come up with to deal with these problems. Anybody not understand the exercise? Still in your same cases, still in your same roles. Any other questions? Okay, go to it. I'm going to circulate. I'll come around and I'll answer your questions, but go for it. Okay, folks, if I could have your attention back. Could I have your attention back? So here, tell us who you are, what problem you are working on, and what experiment you came up with.
Hi, my name's Bob Field. I'm with the Florida Intergenerational Orchestra. Our issue is blight in the community, and we've had a little more luck this time around. I spent 36 years as a public defender, and the first time we went around, I would have liked to have my table as the jury because they couldn't agree on anything. And many of my clients would have walked away. But here, and the issue of how to deal with blight, Our ideas had to do with going. The city manager indicated she would go to the banks and force banks to maintain property that they were foreclosing upon. My idea was to try to prevent the banks from foreclosing on property or having some kind of a moratorium on foreclosures. Community service, we were asking our nonprofits to involve themselves in a community service project to clean up lawns and maintain things that the bank wouldn't do. We were going to force the banks to hire people to maintain the lawns so we could get some employment in that regard. We were going to have an arts fair where the idea was to publicize the situation of our city and try and get people to donate money, and using the social networks to show that no man is an island, no man works alone, and showing the poor people and how we were struggling. We were going to ask the mayor to contact the governor's office to get more state aid, and if necessary to apply for federal aid for our city, to put more money into shelters so we could get people some food. The businessman wanted tax incentives in order to bring his company into our city. Our mayor was very strong about, she wanted to know precisely how many people were going to be employed, and I kind of, being the facilitator, told her, just let's agree on a framework. And that's about it. But the thing is that with a little more time and concentration on the problem, we were able to get a lot more done this time around.
Awesome. Big hand. But actually, before I take back the microphone, so tell me, what's the experiment? How will you know whether or not any of those programs will have succeeded or not?
Well, when you drive through our city, if it's prettier,
okay.
We're going to be looking for something that people aren't afraid to drive in. So we'll know if that. Also, we'll know if we're accomplishing the result to see how well people are motivated to action. I mean, we can talk about it in you can talk about these things all you want, but then you've got to go out and just do it, as you said.
Okay, so you're relying on some qualitative measures of whether or not it's working or not. Anybody got something different or something quantitative? Yeah, okay. Tell us again the problem.
Okay, my name is Lisa Mahal, and I'm not going to tell you where I'm from because you'll see why in a second. We had the program of blight and homelessness, and thinking forward that the Florida legislature is going to change some of the laws, we're going to base ours on legalized marijuana. We are going to start a green market where we can give away bikes and teach agricultural skills and sell some paraphernalia. We're going to have tax incentives. We're going to get the Chamber of Commerce involved in the city and reach out to the regional and state markets to try and bring new companies into the area. We're going to turn the abandoned houses into grow houses, and we're going to give some of them to Habitat for Humanity to have additional housing for the new people who are working. We're going to have skill training and job training because we're going to grow a lot of different new types of products. And we're going to create a destination with our new city.
Awesome. Give her a big hand. Give her a big hand. So, other than pounds of pot, how will we know if you've succeeded or not?
Well, we did talk about the green market, and we're going to roll it out with a PR campaign and have it maybe for a month and see how each week goes, and have like bikes that we give away for free and see if we start seeing them in the city and measurables within the green market.
That's great. That's great. Who else was working blight and homelessness? Anybody come up with another blight or homelessness related solution or experiment they want to share? I'm going to go over here. Here you go.
Hi, it's me again. Leslie Antoinette. Now I am the mother of a son with adult onset schizophrenia. He is homeless and doesn't take his meds, and he's contributing to the blight in this in our town. We have a business owner who is going to go under because he can't afford to pay his employees. We've got a nonprofit who is doing skilled training for volunteers. An hour of volunteer time equals a meal. She's going to send her volunteers to his business to work. We've also got another nonprofit over here who's working with students, and who am I pointing to? Who's working with students in the technical trades, and we're going to build a network where the students come into either an apprenticeship or a training program, either through their school or through one of the nonprofits in the city, and they can also apprentice with our business owner here, and that will allow them then to begin to network with one another to build low-cost housing communities.
Right.
Because I think I left out that your students actually build the habitat homes. Yes, sorry I left that little detail out. So now we've got people going from homelessness and blight in the community to employment and self-sustaining home communities.
So how are you going to know that one of those worked? What would you measure before? What would you measure after?
We would probably measure the amount of new housing that was generated. We would definitely use his production numbers to see how his business was increasing or decreasing in terms of both product and income.
He's producing paraphernalia.
He's gonna help that other community. They've got blight down there, so the pot paraphernalia from this community goes to help. Okay, so we got a little export market going. I love it. Okay, is that good?
Did I miss somebody? I know I missed somebody.
Yeah, the mayor decided that since they're doing all this great product with the paraphernalia, it's business, we want to get other businesses involved. So I've asked the group to let them know that the city does support, the mayor does support them, and you can use this city mayor's office name to say that we will give some tax infringement benefits to businesses who are willing to jump right in and help the community. So we're going to use the current business as an example, and then they'll be able to go out and speak to other businesses. For instance, for the number of students or volunteers that they bring in to support the business, to help the business help the community, that will be the percentage of the tax infringement. For instance, if they bring 25 students in, they'll get X percent off their taxes. If they bring in 50 students, they get Y percent interest off their taxes.
Awesome. Big hand for this group. Thank you. So now, one last exercise we're going to do here, and that is I want you to try to put into practice the principles that we just learned from Carol. And what I want you to do is to think about the experiments that you've just come up with and all of the other different ideas that you've come up with over the course of this workshop, and think about how you're going to distill that down to an elevator pitch. A 1-minute quick pitch that's going to explain, it's going to hit us emotionally. You're going to tell us emotionally why this problem is a big problem and why we got to solve it, and what you're going to do about it, and how you're going to measure and know that you've solved it. And then I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to ask you to share your pitches. You got what I'm asking you to do? Anybody unclear? You've got 15 minutes to come up with a great pitch. Ready? Go.
I'm a grandmother, and for years I have struggled to participate in my grandchildren's activity at their school. But because of accessibility issues, I have been unable to do that. This collaboration came together and made a difference in my family's life. And if we can just get more money, we can do that everywhere in this city. God bless you.
All right. That is awesome. That is awesome. Okay, who's next? Here we go. Right here. Who's my spokesperson? Here you go. Ready? Go.
Back to the future. Remember when it was safe to play outdoors until dark and Mom called you in for supper and everyone in the neighborhood looked at you, looked after you, and took care of you? Well, in our community, we want to get together again. We want to give the same opportunities to the next generation coming up, the same opportunities we had to be safe and work together. Back to the future.
Amen. All right. Awesome. Awesome. How about in this group over here? I'm going to go. Oh, here, I'll stop here.
I'm G.I. Jane.
Stand.
Thank God for the job mentoring program. They've taken me from waiting tables to now I'm a successful computer person and ready to work at the XYZ company. And we need you, Mr. Shark, and we need Mary from the Office Foundation to invest. Your help in that nonprofits organization Power is going to enable the rest of our people to be trained and be there to fill those job positions at XYZ and bring that successful. Because I'm G.I. Jane, and we can do it. Thank you.
Awesome. Big hand. Okay, I'm coming back. I'm going to go over here. Somebody has a song for me back here, too. Who's got the song? Let's do the song. I'll come back to you.
Okay, our project was Urban Food Deserts. And to help our area, we're going to grow a community garden. So, take me out to the garden. Take me out to the farm. Pick me some carrots and broccoli. I don't care if I never get fat, for it's root for the veggies. If you don't like them, it's a shame, for it's 1, 2, 3 snacks for me at the new community garden. And that's why you should fund us.
Wow, 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 wow. Who's next? Who's ready? You ready?
Do you know what it's like for me and my teenage daughter to have Fruit Loops for breakfast, canned soup and a bologna sandwich for lunch, and then a box mac and cheese for dinner? This is what we've been living on for many years. And now, thanks to our mayor and our businessmen from our community, we also have our own urban garden, and it's called Vida's Fresh Produce. And we even think about using our bicycles to ride and to run to the garden and to get our fresh produce. And now I want our daughter to tell you the difference it made in her life.
I used to be fat. I was really embarrassed when I walked with my mom, and after 2 years.
Wow.
So what we're going to do, Mr. Mayor, is we're going to walk, run, bicycle to healthy food and a healthy lifestyle at the urban garden.
Woo! All right, okay. I can do one more after this. So.
I'd like you to imagine yourself sitting in a beautifully decorated restaurant, eating a sumptuous 14-course meal prepared by culinary experts of our own school who have prepared these foods from our own organic community garden, which also sells fresh vegetables throughout the community. All the workforce consists of formerly unemployed community residents who have been retrained at the formerly abandoned Acme factory building, with all the profits going back into the community once we have the funds to rehab the building. How big a part of the miracle would you like to play?
All right. Thank you. Good job. Okay, who's going to take me out strong? Yeah? Okay. Oh, gosh. Go ahead.
Diet? Forget diet. Do it healthy. Food matters, and so do you. Bringing healthy solutions home. Saving every generation one bite at a time.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Big round for all of our pitchers. That's an amazing job. Look what you can do in just 15 minutes. So I'm going to send us out with a few closing thoughts. And the first thing I want to make sure you know is that, as I've said, everything we've done today is open source. What that means is that it's free. So if you bring me your business card and you write partner model canvas on the back of it, I will give you everything that we've talked about today. Not just my slides, but there's a workbook, there's electronic versions of the canvas that you've been working on, there's guidebooks and other things. I'll send that all to you for free. The one thing that I ask of you is that you give back. And what I want you to do when you give back is I want you to actually go out and try these things in your organizations, and I want you to share with us at CollaborateUP, share with us your stories of how it's working or not working. And your stories of how it's not working are almost as important to us as your stories of how they do work. So we really want you to take these tools, experiment with them, try them out, and let us know what works and what doesn't work. And if you give me your card, I'll make sure you get them. Oh, just write ODF on it. That's fine. You know, just write something so I remember where I got your card from. So if you just write Office Depot Foundation, or write Mary. Writing Mary is perfect. Write Mary. So no, I would never forget Mary. So a couple of closing thoughts for you. I think what we heard from Melissa was, and we also heard from Carol, is that these problems that we face are really big, and they're really profound, but they're not about us. They're about the people, the communities, and the different impacted populations that we serve. And when we focus and we put the energy and the emotion on the issue, and on the data and on the problem, we can help to depersonalize things, break down these problems, and really start to find ways of tackling them together. What we did in the first part of our session together was what we would call the data lab. We sat down and we tried to find where's the common cause between us, where are those gaps in between our different organizations where we can come and form partnerships that would work together. But we start by looking at what's at stake, trying to understand what would happen if we did nothing and what's possible if we work together. And then in the second round of our case studies, what we did is we looked at how we can form discrete experiments. And experiments are just that. They're ways of trying to test our reality and test our future rather than trying to predict our future. You guys generated some amazing ideas in just a very short amount of time. Imagine what you could do if you really went through this canvas in detail. And what this canvas really is I don't want to overblow it, and I don't want to overblow our methodology, but really what it is a step-by-step process and a set of questions that you can ask yourself so that you can make sure that you've thought through the problem. And more than that, they provide a platform for co-creation. Because remember what I said when I started. When we're really trying to bring people together, what we have to do is we have to co-create this future together. Empathy starts with vulnerability. If we want to draw people into our vision, we have to show them that we ourselves are vulnerable, that we're willing to take risks, and that we need their help. And when we do that, when we create that kind of a vision together, we can really tackle problems much larger than ourselves, much larger than our organizations, much larger than our communities, much larger than our sectors, and we can tackle them together. But it starts with being willing to take risk and to really be vulnerable with each other. The last thing, and perhaps the most vulnerable thing you can do, is to think about an exit strategy. Melissa talked about it, Carol talked about it. If you're really going to be vulnerable, you have to be willing to paint a picture in which you're willing to put yourselves out of business. And if you're really thinking about how you're going to solve this problem, as opposed to sustain your organization, that is perhaps the first place in starting with how are we going to deal with the competition for all the same money. Thinking about really putting ourselves in service of solving the problem, not in service of maintaining our organizations. That is very vulnerable. That is a very big risk, I know. But it is where real innovation begins. So with that, I would leave you with this. We face some very profound troubles, some very profound problems as a society. But the only way that those problems are going to be solved is with people like you. The problems that we face in the Commons are problems that no one organization, no one person, and no one sector can solve, but you in the civil sector, you are the conveners. You are the catalysts of innovation, and it is in your power, in your control, to bring together the people who will generate the solutions that will save not just my 3 kids, not just Melissa's 6 kids, but all of our children and all of our grandchildren for years to come. The thing that I've always loved about the Office Depot Foundation, that I've always loved about Weekend in Boca, is that it makes me cry. Every time I go to the Listen, Learn, and Care Awards, I end up a big sobbing mess. I'm not going to end up a big sobbing mess right now, but I am going to tell you from the bottom of my heart, my one goal in this session today was to create a cadre of people who can go forth with a set of tools to solve the truly profound problems that we face in this world. You can rely not just on each other, but you can rely on me as your partner in this journey. And I hope that you will actually come and give me your card, that you will actually use these tools, because only together can we solve these problems. This methodology is our little contribution, but it is you who will make the difference. Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you so much.